Welcome to the 5-year retrospective of the Cherrywood Challenge. We have been doing these art quilt contests for 5 years now, and we have the honor of having some quilts hanging behind me, and aren't they just gorgeous? I'll get out of the way a little bit so you can see. I have prepared a video that will give you up close and personal detail shots of all these quilts. I had the honor of talking to these artists, and that is spliced into the video. So there's really not much for me to say because the video will take care of that. But if you are new to the Cherrywood Challenges, what this was a contest that we put out, and our fabric is the cohesive part of all these quilts that holds them together. So every year we come out with a bundle of fabric and a theme to go with it, and the contest is open to everybody. So we are getting people from all over the world, and the idea is, what can you do with just this limited color palette and a 20-inch square quilt? I got this idea several years ago to do a challenge, and I wanted to see what people could do with just a very limited color palette. So basically using one color. The rules are you had to make the quilts 20 inches square, and you had to use all cherrywood. We did allow people to use other colors as accent color. The rules were wide open as far as technique and embellishment. So the first challenge that started the whole thing was Wicked on Broadway. And you know, you can find quilters everywhere, and I happened to find a quilter in the costume department of Wicked on Broadway. So that is what started this whole thing. Ended up working with the stage manager, and she just loved this project. So we had hoped, since this was our first contest, to maybe get a small amount of quilts, you know, maybe 10 or 12, 20 would be kind of cool, and we got 114 entries. So we were overwhelmed and very happy with the feedback. There's some symbolism in this one. Some people wonder why there's a dragon, but if you've ever been to or seen the musical production of Wicked, the gate in the background stage is a huge dragon and a lot of clocks and cogs and wheels. This is one of my favorites. This would be like if the tornado swept by and it's looking down into the tornado and the river. Now the second challenge, it was kind of a natural progression to do another Broadway production, so I chose Lion King. And of course this was a little bit harder to work with because of Disney, but if you get to the right person, and I'm pretty good at proposing what this was going to be because I had Wicked to show. So they finally embraced this, and we tripled our entries up to 306 entries. I was working with Disney Theatrical Group, which is a small division of Disney, so they were able to be a lot more flexible, and it ended up that they were celebrating their 20th year on Broadway. So they chose 20 quilts to hang in the theater right on Broadway, which was an absolute thrill for those people and for me. And this is the entire collection. This is a juried collection. So many beautiful costumes, and some people went with the more literal line kind of theme, and this is all thread painting. We don't want to limit people's creativity, so we accept any kind of embellishing, from beading to painting to Prisma pens and inks to batik or bleaching. We just really want to see what people can come up with. This is lyrics, and lyrics from the songs of the Broadway production that she cut out letter by letter and appliqued onto her quilt. And then Van Gogh. Everybody loves the gorgeous blues that Van Gogh used in all of his paintings. And this time we got 465 entries. And this collection was so large that we kept a lot more than we had in the past, and decided to make 2 different tours because we got invited to showcase some of the quilts in France and some in Australia. So this was quite an exciting year, and it culminated in a European bus tour where we had 44 quilters traveling around Europe, studying and following the footsteps of Van Gogh, and then we ended up seeing our quilts hanging at Bow and Needle Company. our 5th challenge, decided to mix it up a little bit. And for the 5th challenge, I decided instead of just one color, I would choose 8 colors in characteristic of Bob's limited palette of oil painting. And those are the 8 colors right there. This time we had 404 entries.
Like autumn to me. I think we'll call that one finished. And from all of us here, I'd like to wish you happy painting, and God bless, my friend.
So over the weekend, these ladies got to see the quilts hanging for the first time.
So excited when I got this email. I couldn't sleep. I'm a portrait quilt fanatic. I just like the lime green, witchy green, and witches. So it started with that and Elphaba, and I did some research and development on what her costume looked like, and I embellished the heck out of it. Now when I did this one, I had a strategy. I thought more people were going to do the lion Simba than the girl lion Nala. So I did Nala. And when I drew her, I could not get that hand to come out. So I actually laid my hand, that's my hand on there. I don't know, I just love Starry Night, and I thought, why can't I somehow turn that into like hair, like Afro puffs? That was a blast. And then I chose to use the rest of the blues for her skin, and then it went from there. And that's my favorite. I just love that hair. Prince was easy and it was hard. Easy to me because his songbook has so many options of ideas. And Paisley Park, I chose Raspberry Beret because, again, strategy, I thought more people would pick other songs, and that's a song I like. I wear berets. The little tip on the beret is actually something I cut off from my own Raspberry Beret and stitched it on. I'll admit I struggled with Bob Ross a little bit, because to me that was all landscape or Bob Ross. So then the gears were going, and it's like, why can't I combine like a woman with a tree? And that's how it came to be, and I loved that one. With the Lion King, mine was one of the 20 that did get to go to Broadway. It was such an honor to see all of them on display there.
I was really excited to find out about the first one because I had just seen Wicked on Broadway, and so I was just thrilled, and somehow I managed to keep that excitement through doing the whole quilt. I think the best part is finding out what the new topic is going to be every time. It's like,
yeah. Oh, the anticipation.
Yes.
Now, is that needle turn applique or raw edge?
Animals are raw edge. The circles are hand applique needle turn, not needle turn, off the block. I turn them on freezer paper first and then put them on. I love doing hand applique, so that's my forte. And GOGH was fun because blue is my color, and like I said, applique is my forte. So I was in my comfort zone throughout that whole quilt. So that's all off the block, turned edge, hand applique. Even that little ladybug. Prince was a little tougher just because I was way out of my comfort zone with like raw edge, fused stuff. Quilted the bejesus out of it so they'd all stay on there. Bob Ross, I loved doing that squirrel. That squirrel was fun. Yeah. So I did all the body of the squirrel is all hand embroidered. Then the tail I did on the machine. I did the body separately. I did almost out to the edge of the squirrel the squirrel body all the way around, just on muslin. And then I cut that out, put it on the real background, and finished the embroidery out to the edge. You come up with the best ideas for challenges. I would never be able to come up with those ideas, but they are definitely a challenge.
Oh my gosh, for me, it's just figuring out how I can keep challenging myself to grow. So as the competition has started with Wicked, at that time I was doing more traditional piecing. So I have 100 little 2-inch square blocks in the quilt that are variations on a monkey wrench 3 and twister. And I love doing micro cutting. And this one, cutting out all those little monkeys, was just really taxing to me. I'm kind of crazy that way, but yeah. When Carla mentioned that these were going to be on display, it was one of the 27 on display on Broadway. My husband was able to send me off to New York with my cousin to go see the quilts in New York. And that was my first time to New York, and that was really exciting. And then from there, I went on to Lion King and figured out how to make a 3-dimensional mask that stood away from the surface of the quilt. I went from the young Simba to the adult Simba, the shadow behind the foreground, the peak characters. Van Gogh is my most favorite piece. That one, I wanted to figure out how to do a painting out of fabric and cut thousands of little pieces. It is actually one of the pictures we took when we were there. And it's doing a Starry, Starry Night type of theme, but yet still have that personal aspect of where we were. And again, you can see the 3-dimensional aspect on the blades that I did for the windmills. The one in the foreground is 3-dimensional, one in the background is just stitched on the surface. But it's always a surprise when the quilt turns out like the vision. I don't know. And then when I went on to Prince, I wanted to challenge myself to figure out how I could make a record of something that emulated some of his music with the images on it, but then make that record removable from the top of the quilt. So when you pulled the record off, you could see Paisley Park beneath it and still attach the record back on. And my husband suggested a rare earth magnet, and I had to figure out how to incorporate that and sew that into the record so you could pull it and it could shake it. And I remember writing in my notes when I sent it in, you can shake this quilt and it will not come apart. And then the Bob Ross, trying to figure out how to do his brush stroke sweeping that he would do on his painting and incorporate that in with the Prismacolor pencils. So I challenged myself to do a different media type within the project, and that one turned out really neat too. So I've got his paint tubes below and the side of the easel on the left. Yeah, it's always been about challenging yourself.
So tell us a little bit about this one, Betsy.
Oh, that was really fun. That was my favorite also. I had those little charms of red shoes, so I wanted to incorporate that. Tried to use those colors to, make the tunnel kind of glow and flow and get some perspective in there. So that's just again bridge applique, and I tried to liven it up with some of the beading. The long white beads are bone, so oh, and Van Gogh, and I wanted to do something really different, so I've been studying them, and I found this chicken that was just hand sketched, so I made him alive a little bit and put the Van Gogh-esque background. Next one was very meditating. Each one of the paisleys took like 6 to 8 hours to do sew. And his eyelashes are really, really thick. I use these micro beads, size 15 micro beads. Now this was insanity. This was insanity.
Humorous,
Yes.
lighthearted. I think it's so interesting, I'm sure you guys too, to see them all hanging together, to see your progression of your style or your techniques and trying new stuff. It's just so cool to see.
Well, and when you mention progression, it's a perfect transition, because when I heard about the Wicked Challenge, I, like Marguerite, had just seen the musical for the first time. And I'd been struck by the messaging of what can happen to people when they're constantly, talked about in ways that don't match their conception of themselves or how they really are. I had a more complex background, but then I just embroidered that question, which is a line from the play, into the background, and that was, what I submitted. This is where I started pushing my skill sets and came up with how to do the giraffe standalone, and then applied it to the completed background. And I had the real giraffe and the Broadway giraffe in the background, but I had a blast doing The Lion King. I was helping a girlfriend tend to her newborn baby goats, and one of the goats had a twig in its mouth with that look on its face. So the whole theme was this goat that was always trying to get into the hay. The goat's painting one of Van Gogh's hay bales. This piece is almost all symbolism of some sort, playing off of how he went by a symbol for a while. So the quilting has the prince symbol, and another symbol he used a lot was a heart mixed in with paisley-like shapes. The eye on the dove is from a photo of Prince's eye. I think I'd like to bop Ross something from Minnesota. Split rock would be fun to do. I tried some new things. The waves in the foreground are Angelina. The painting was the very, very last thing I did. Never painted on fabric before, so that one kind of scared me.
It just blows my mind when you see 200 quilts all the same size and the same color, but they're all different, but they're the same. It makes you want to jump for joy.
I think that's what really draws everyone into these challenges, is that you've got that color palette. So every one of them has a cohesive quality to it, but yet you can still create your own individual imaginations of what you believe that challenge should be. So
I just can't say enough. I feel blessed that the judges appreciated my work and I got in the last 5 times. I love you. I love your company. It's, women owned. It's Midwest. The fabrics are so luscious and fun to work with. I love the books. I love the book signings. I love when we're sitting there and you say, well, which one is yours? And they're so proud to show theirs. And it was like a camaraderie. And that was awesome. And the book allowed me to share what was going on with my friends who aren't quilters and just explore art quilts and the cool things that's going on.
So there's my video. Towards the end there, I was putting together the people who got into 4 years, maybe not consecutive, but I do have some of the actual quilts here to show you. So Marilyn Fromhertz was one of the artists who has been with us from the very beginning. And she just does a ton of embellishing and printing on fabric. And here is her Lion King piece. And again, since we do allow people to manipulate the fabric, that's not white fabric, that is cherrywood that she has stenciled on. And also, this is stenciling all these black figures here. And this is Marilyn's Van Gogh piece. This fabric is printed on, so that was a form of embellishment. All these little pieces here, they're hard, almost like chipboard, and it looks like she has run fabric through her printer and printed images onto the fabric. And then a lot of paint and stamping. This is her prints submission. And then Robin Koenig was kind enough to send us her 4 entries. There's a shadow of Elphaba in the background. You can see her little red lips. And then for the Lion King, she used her leftover fabric from Wicked for the eyes of her lion and for the binding. And that bead between his eyes there, that is a large bead that she has attached to the quilt. This is her Van Gogh piece, again using the gold from Lion King as an accent color. And again, people are allowed to use accent colors as long as the fabric is cherrywood. And then she did all this hand stitching on top of the fabric. Isn't that amazing? And the reference here is Doctor Who, that telephone booth in the background. She's a Doctor Who fan. And this is her prints. Again, all hand stitching. The print symbol is outlined with all this beautiful handwork. And then we have Gail Oliver from Georgia. She has been with us from the beginning too, and she has, I believe, submitted every year. This is her Lion King, which I think is very clever. She came up with this interesting three-dimensional way of doing the sun. So these tiny little pieces are fused onto another piece and only attached at the top, so you can actually get the shadow effect. Very clever. And this is Gail's Van Gogh entry, the blossoms, almond blossom, I believe. And I should be showing you the back of some of these because people really do some interesting stuff in the back of their entries. And of course, we don't know that until the quilts are sent to us. But on the back of this one, Gail, this is a commercially printed fabric of Van Gogh painting, and she put that on the back. And a lot of people put some very interesting labels on the backs of their quilts as well. And this is Gail's prints submission. I believe that background is all fused on, but inside the paisleys, that is all teeny tiny paper piecing. And then Gail did send along this one, which unfortunately was not accepted into the traveling exhibit, but this is her Bob Ross entry. The jury process is pretty difficult because people put so much time and thought and creativity into these quilts, but we just don't have enough room to keep them all. So we have a set of jurors, three jurors who go through and rate each one, and then I tell them how many we're looking for in the display, and those finalists are the ones that we create the traveling exhibit from.